Good morning, it's today again. Welcome back to Joseph's Reserves. I'm Joseph and I store 20% of my income in the form of rare coins and precious metals. A lot of stackers, including myself, talk about playing the gold to silver ratio. Unfortunately, they use it like a buy-sell signal. When it hits this number, buy silver. When it drops to this number, buy gold. I don't use it like a trigger, I use it as a dial. And if you don't understand the difference, playing the ratio can actually distort your stack instead of strengthening it. Today, I'm going to break down exactly how I use the gold to silver ratio inside a real long-term stacking strategy, including the flaws, limitations, and how I overcome them. This isn't about predicting the market, this is about building a system that removes emotion. Congratulations to the first comments over the weekend. I was out of town and not able to shout them out in the last few videos. So thank you to my wife, Emmanuel, and Ergenwy Anders. Thank you for all you do for supporting my channel. This past weekend, I was at a men's retreat. Me and 500 other men were jam-packed into a room and praising the Lord as loud as we could for 36 hours. For one, that can change a man, but for two, it definitely has a toll on your voice. So bear with me, my voice is still healing, but I'm going to go ahead and do the best that I can today. So let's get into it. I've talked about the gold to silver ratio on this channel before, and I've explained how it fits inside my overall strategy, but today we're going to go a little bit deeper, because the truth is, by itself, the gold to silver ratio is a little bit incomplete. It is useful and it is powerful, but if you rely on it alone, it can create imbalances within your stack. So today I'm going to break down into 3 parts: how someone can use the gold to silver ratio to adjust their dollar cost average, the flaws that a real world constraints can have on that approach, and why I use portfolio percentages and how you should set yours based on your own risk tolerance. This is not financial advice, this is just a personal framework that I plan to use over the next couple decades. Alright, so using the gold to silver ratio as a dial instead of a switch. The gold to silver ratio simply measures how many ounces of silver it would take to buy 1 ounce of gold. It's like the price of gold if priced in silver. Historically, that number has moved in cycles. And when the ratio is high, silver is historically undervalued relative to gold. When the ratio is low, gold is historically undervalued relative to silver. Most people interpret this as a green light to go all in on whichever metal looks cheap. Instead, you should adjust your allocation percentages within your dollar cost average. If the ratio is high, tilt more of that weekly purchase towards silver. If the ratio is low, tilt more of that weekly purchase into gold. Notice what I didn't say. Notice I didn't say stop buying one entirely. Don't just flip a switch. Don't go 100% into one metal and 0% in the other. Just adjust slowly. That's really, really important because markets can stay elevated or depressed for long periods of times. If you set a strict threshold saying that you're only going to be buying silver above 80, what happens when the ratio stays under 80 for 5 years? You might not be buying silver for half of that decade. And the reverse is also true. If the ratio stays high for years, you might barely accumulate any gold, and that creates long-term distortion. The ratio is a relative value tool. It's not a timing guarantee. So instead of hard triggers, I suggest to use a sliding scale. The higher it goes, the more you should lean towards silver. The lower it goes, the more you should lean towards gold. A gradual shift, not dramatic changes. Because stacking is a long-term activity. So the thing is, there are some real-world constraints here, and it mostly comes from your dollar cost average. And here's what most people ignore when this ratio discussion comes up. Your budget really does matter. If your dollar cost average is modest, like mine, then the ratio suggests buying gold, you may only be able to afford 1 gram at a time. And if you don't enjoy stacking in 1 gram increments, then your strategy conflicts with your preferences. So that ratio doesn't care about premiums. It doesn't care about the liquidity spreads. It doesn't care about whether you prefer full ounces or pieces larger than a tenth of an ounce. What it shows is relative valuation. So just like anything, you have to adapt your tools to your life, not your life to the tool. For example, if gold is favored by the ratio, but premiums are extreme on fractional pieces, it might make more sense to continue a steady allocation of silver until you can afford to buy gold effectively. The strategy must remain practical, not just theoretical. This is where many stackers overcomplicate things. They try to perfectly optimize every purchase, but optimization can become paralysis. The goal is steady positioning, not perfect execution every time. So yes, I do use the gold to silver ratio, but I also respect my budget, my premium tolerances, my stacking preferences, and my long-term goals, because a system only works if you can sustain it. So how do I get around this? The gold to silver ratio is suggesting I buy gold, but my dollar cost average is not quite enough to be buying gold right now. And this is where my strategy becomes very powerful. The ratio does help with new purchases, but more importantly, a shift in the gold to silver ratio will show itself in my portfolio percentages, and I use those portfolio percentages as a guide of rebalancing. Over time, the metals move differently. Silver might have a strong year, gold might lag behind, platinum might underperform them both. Even if prices don't move dramatically, your ongoing dollar cost averaging will shift percentages. For example, if I'm consistently buying silver, its share of my portfolio will naturally grow. This means my portfolio can drift away from intended balance just because of my dollar cost average. So I define target ranges, not exact numbers, ranges. And these ranges should reflect your risk tolerance. Silver is more volatile, gold is more stable, and platinum is industrial and a lot more speculative. If you are more risk adverse, you may prefer a higher gold allocation. And if you are more comfortable with volatility and want more upside potential, you may lean heavier into silver. If you believe in industrial demand cycles, you may include a platinum strategy. The key is this: you set your ranges intentionally. Then, when one metal exceeds its upper band, you rebalance. You trade some of that outperforming metal into an underperforming one. This naturally forces you into selling strength and buying weakness, without guessing tops, without predicting bottoms, and something interesting will happen. Often, not always, but often, this rebalancing aligns with market shifts, because markets move in cycles. The metals that run hard eventually cool. The metals that lag behind eventually catch up. You're not forecasting that, you're just positioning for it. That's a very big difference. I'm going to give you an example, and just to be very clear, this is not the ranges that I use. This is not ranges that I would suggest. This might be what you come up with yourself, but I'm going to share this so that you can see what a possible portfolio could look like. Imagine if gold was 25 to 30% of your portfolio, silver is 55 to 65% of your portfolio, and platinum was 5 to 10%. The key here is that when you add all of them together, on the high end you get 110%, and on the low end you get 85%. This is on purpose so that you cannot have all of your metals on the high end or all of your metals on the low end. If it's a perfect 100, they will be somewhere in the middle, and it'll be very easy for you to see that when one exceeds the range, the other will be dramatically lower than it. So how do you design your portfolio? And this part is very important. It's critical. Your portfolio ratios should reflect your personality and risk tolerances. If silver volatility keeps you up at night, you shouldn't be overweight in silver. If gold feels too slow and conservative for your goals, then you might want a smaller allocation of gold. There's no universally correct ratio. The only thing is that it must align with your time horizons, your income stability, your emotional discipline, and your conviction for each metal. A younger stacker with decades ahead may tolerate a lot more volatility that comes from silver. Someone closer to retirement may prefer a heavier gold stability. A system that causes stress is not sustainable. A system aligned with your temperament is. And that's why copying someone else's ratio blindly is dangerous. You can learn frameworks. You can adjust how you're doing based on how you feel about your stack over time. Even in those two examples of a young stacker and an older stacker having different risk tolerances, you can see that over time you will shift your preferences to more stability. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing that over time you're going to be shifting from silver into gold. It's just up to you to determine how much to start with and how quickly you want to make that adjustment. Just remember that if you're looking for a long-term stacking strategy, you are not trying to perfectly time the metals. You're not trying to maximize short-term returns. You're trying to build a resilient structure, a balanced allocation, and a disciplined habit. The gold to silver ratio is a tool, and portfolio percentage is more of a framework. The risk tolerance is your filter, and when you combine all three of these, stacking becomes less reactive and more strategic. Over decades, that's going to matter quite a lot. Because stacking isn't about being right this year, it's about being positioned for the long run. So overall, if you simply use the gold to silver ratio as a trigger, it can mislead you. If you use it as a dial, it can guide you. If you ignore these portfolio percentages, you might drift into an imbalance. And if you ignore your risk tolerance, you may build something you can't emotionally sustain. So design your system intentionally. Set your ranges thoughtfully and adjust gradually. Rebalance calmly. That's how the gold to silver ratio should be used. Not to predict, just to stay disciplined. I just made my own line of coffee. Joseph's Reserves It's Today Again coffee. Most mornings aren't dramatic. They're quiet. You wake up, pour yourself a cup, and now you have a choice. Drift through the day or take hold of what's in front of you. That's really what this whole thing's about. Showing up, building good habits, staying disciplined in the small things. Whether that's stacking consistently, learning something new, or just being faithful with what you've been given. I put these words on every bag to remind myself first. Every morning is a gift. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. So take a breath, take a sip, and let's get to work. It's today again. You can now write me at Joseph's Reserves, 10160 Highway 242, Suite 800, number 401 in Conroe, Texas, zip code 77385. Make sure to include your information so I can write you back. If you liked today's video, be sure to go down and give it a thumbs up. Make any comments or questions down into the comment section and share the video to anyone you think may like it. Subscribe if you haven't already. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, every ounce adds up. So no matter how small, just keep stacking.